Good morning. I'm Savannah Sellers.
I'm Joe Fryer. Right now on Morning News Now, round 3. Former President Trump is expected to announce his third run for the White House today, despite the disappointing results of candidates he backed in the midterms. We'll break down what his next campaign could mean for a potential rematch with President Biden, who's wrapping up a historic G20 summit in Bali this morning. All in on Arizona. NBC News is now projecting Katie Hobbs as the winner of Arizona's race for governor, defeating Republican Kari Lake. Well, the very latest on the ground in Arizona as the swing state turns blue following Democratic wins for governor, Senate, and Secretary of State. Holiday hassles. Airfares are soaring as the busy holiday travel season gets underway. So how is the Department of Transportation preparing to help travelers this year? Savannah sat down with Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg to discuss that and much more. And fit for fame, Christina Applegate made her first public appearance yesterday since being diagnosed last year with multiple sclerosis, attending her Hollywood Walk of Fame ceremony in Los Angeles. I'm going to take you inside the ceremony and the Hollywood star's graceful battle with the disease that's causing her to cut her acting career short. Really some powerful moments, and amazing to see she was surrounded by people from her Married with Children days and from her current job doing Dead to Me. So
yeah, very neat. And so cool to see she got honored with that.
Exactly, a childhood dream come true.
Yeah.
We'll get to that in a little bit. We're going to begin this morning with the midterm election. Remember, it was 1 week ago? Feels like longer. Votes are still being counted, and now we have that expected announcement that could quickly switch attention to the 2024 presidential race.
That's right. Right now, here's where things stand. There are still races in the West that have not yet been projected by NBC News, but Republicans have a lead as they look to take control of the House of Representatives. There's what you're looking at is the projection. Now, Democrats have already won enough seats to control the Senate. Now, a closely watched race was the one for Arizona governor, and NBC News is now projecting that Democrat Katie Hobbs will become the state's new governor, defeating Republican Kari Lake. But the race for the White House could soon take center stage. Former President Trump is expected to kick off a third straight run for the White House with an announcement planned for today. We have full coverage of all of it this morning, beginning with NBC News senior congressional correspondent Garrett Hake in Florida.
The former president has been teasing this announcement almost since the moment he left the White House in 2021, including on social media, saying today is a day that will go down in history. This announcement comes despite a growing chorus of criticism from fellow Republicans saying Mr. Trump should delay his announcement or he shouldn't run at all after poor performances by candidates he backed in the midterms, including in a big race called overnight in Arizona. This morning, another major symbolic defeat for former President Donald Trump in the midterms, just as he's set to announce his third run for the White House. Democrat Katie Hobbs narrowly beating Republican Kari Lake for Arizona governor. Lake had been one of Mr. Trump's most prominent allies in the midterms and one of the staunchest supporters of his false claims denying the results of the 2020 election.
Do we love this man or what?
Lake continuing to question her own race's results last night, tweeting, "Arizonans know BS when they see it." But there is no evidence of any fraud in the election, and the winner, Hobbs, ran on a message of trust in the electoral system. Ahead of his Mar-a-Lago speech, Mr. Trump's influence on the Republican Party is now under intense scrutiny, with many of the election-denying Republicans he supported falling short against Democratic opponents.
I think President Trump was an albatross on the electoral prospects of some of our candidates.
Overnight, the conservative Wall Street Journal editorial board writing that Democrats will be, quote, elated with Trump's announcement, adding, last week's elections showed that clinging to 2020 election denial, as Mr. Trump has, is a loser's game. It comes as the man who was once his most loyal defender now speaking out against the former president and his role in the January 6th insurrection.
The president's words were reckless, and his actions were reckless.
Former Vice President Mike Pence, widely expected to be planning his own 2024 campaign, now opposing his former boss.
Do you believe that Donald Trump should ever be president again?
I think that's up to the American people. But I think we'll have better choices in the future.
Despite these critiques, Mr. Trump's announcement of a third run for the White House will go forward today, according to a top advisor.
It's going to be a very professional, very buttoned-up announcement.
Mr. Trump has been recently ramping up attacks against perceived opponents, especially Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. But polling released by a conservative group opposing Mr. Trump shows DeSantis opening significant leads over the former president in key early primary states. Even as we turn our attention to 2024, 2022 still has 14 uncalled House races. Republicans only need to win 3 to take control of the chamber. They're still favored to do so. Then it's up to Kevin McCarthy to try to get the votes he needs to be Speaker. A 7-week slog before the results of this past election are still fully known.
All right, Garrett Haake, thank you so much.
To Arizona now, where people are waking up this morning finally to a governor-elect. NBC News projects Democrat Katie Hobbs will become the state's new governor. NBC News correspondent Steve Patterson joins us once again from Phoenix with the latest there. Steve, good morning. So NBC News is projecting this win for Katie Hobbs over the Trump-backed Republican Kari Lake. We know this race was called really with a razor-thin margin between the two candidates. That's why it took so long, less than 1% separating them. Explain to us what put Hobbs over the top here.
Yeah, so there's kind of 2 ways to answer that, Joe. There's the technical answer and there's more the theoretical moral answer. We'll start with the technical answer, which is simply that Kari Lake kind of ran out of votes by the last day here. And it started with Election Day, where Lake thought that she would be able to build up a significant lead. To her surprise, that did not happen. Hobbs jumped out in front with a fairly significant, but still, obviously a lead that Lake was able to catch up to over the next few days. And Lake thought that, by kind of casting doubt on the election, telling her supporters to drop their ballots off on Election Day, that the next few days, as the batches of votes came in day after day after day, that they would be heavily GOP favored. And they were GOP favored. She started to creep up to that lead. The problem is they were incremental and not exponential. They were not haymakers, they were jabs. And because every day they were jabs means the next day needed to be a big punch. That punch never came. And by last night, when Maricopa announced that they were going to have a big drop of votes, that we all knew essentially that this would decide the election. And there just wasn't enough steam really left in the tank. And the other answer really is that this was a categoric rejection across this state of denialism, from Secretary of State to the Senate race, now to the governor's race. You look at this state that used to be so ruby red, now really divided into thirds between independents and Democrats and Republicans. And those Democrats and independents heard the national discourse about a woman's right to choose, the sanctity of your own body, to the democratic process itself, combined with Republicans, that I think were in hiding in many ways, who have now come out. Maybe these McCain Republicans who have woken up to a party that they don't recognize, choosing to vote that way and choosing to vote for Hobbs. And that's where we're at, waking up to what we believe will be Arizona's next governor. Joe?
Steve, I have to finish the metaphor. Last night, Katie Hobbs then delivered the knockout punch. All right. So after this projection was made last night, Kari Lake took to Twitter to criticize her state's results. I mean, what's next for her? Does she have any options at this point?
Yeah, just about 90 minutes after NBC projected the winner, Kari Lake went on Twitter and said that Arizonans can see BS or no BS when they see it. Look, I mean, she's been ramping up for this, I think, for several days, calling out to her constituents, calling out, not constituents, but people that supported her, putting, messages on her website and on Twitter and on the Sunday talk shows that there were problems with the election, that election officials were slow rolling the vote, that certain election machines had problems. There were problems with some tabulation machines. They weren't able to detect some of the markings of the ballots, but Maricopa elected officials and people who run the election say that all of those ballots ended up being counted, that there never was any question of the sanctity of the vote. There was also some question because, Katie Hobbs is Secretary of State, that she's somehow verifying her own election. That is an administrational process. The counties handle the election, but expect to hear in the next few days the possibility of lawsuits, and Kari Lake is not going to let this go anytime soon.
And quickly, Joe. Steve, we should talk about the governor-elect Katie Hobbs. Do we know what we can expect from her once she's sworn in?
You know, she's promised a return to normality, of reaching across the aisle, of protecting voting rights, of protecting the sanctity of democracy, of protecting a woman's right to choose. All of these things have been kind of hallmarks of her campaign, and she wants to make do on those promises. She's going to speak where I'm standing in just a few hours. We'll be here, and hopefully we can answer that question.
All right, Steve Patterson in Phoenix. Steve, thank you so much.
Now, today, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp is expected to testify before a special grand jury investigating interference in the 2020 election. His testimony comes just 1 week after being re-elected governor of Georgia. NBC News correspondent Blaine Alexander joins us now from Atlanta on this. Hey, Blaine, good to see you. So Governor Kemp is actually set to be the highest-ranking government official known, at least, to be testifying before Georgia's grand jury. And we understand his lawyers initially tried to quash this subpoena, but now he is expected to testify in person. Walk us through how we got to this point and also why he was asked to testify in the first place.
Yeah, this is kind of the culmination of what we've seen as a weeks, even months-long back and forth between the governor's office and the DA's office over whether or not he would testify and what that testimony would look like. So initially, there was an agreement between the DA's office and the governor's office that he would give tape testimony, but all of that kind of fell apart once they started going back and forth over the timing. The big thing that was really in the middle of all of this was what we saw last week, the election, the midterm election, in which Governor Kemp was, of course, running for a second term. His attorneys argued that having him testify so close to the election could essentially be an undue tax on him, an undue burden, because he was busy campaigning. He was also busy running the state, and they were concerned that it could have political implications when it came to his re-election bid. The judge agreed with that and said that, OK, he doesn't have to testify before, but he does have to testify soon after the election, and that's what brings us to today. 1 week after the election certainly qualifies as soon after. So according to a source that's familiar with the arrangements, we understand the governor is going to arrive here at the Fulton County Courthouse behind me sometime this morning and testify before the Fulton County grand jury. As for what they want to hear, this, of course, goes back to any conversations that former President Trump had with Kemp trying to get him to overturn the election results here in Georgia. Savannah.
And, Blaine, where do we stand overall in the grand jury's investigation into this potential interference?
This has been a long process. You know, the DA said before this kind of quiet period that she said that she was entering around the election itself, she said that she was mostly done with the people that she wanted to hear from. She heard from a majority of the people, but that she still has some folks that she wants to call. Now, of course, the one thing that a lot of people are watching for is, will she get to people who are further in the former president's inner circle and possibly issue a subpoena of him himself? When I spoke to her over the summer, she said essentially anything's possible. She's very clearly not ruling that out. But she did make it clear that she wants to wind this process down sometime before the end of the year. Savannah.
All right, Blaine Alexander, thank you so much.
Developing news this morning, President Biden is pulling out of a gala dinner at the G20 summit in Indonesia. A White House official says the change is, quote, not urgent, and the president is not sick beyond the cold he mentioned yesterday. Meantime, there's disagreement among G20 leaders over a bid by the United States and its allies to condemn the Ukraine war. The group is said to be considering a draft resolution which highlights the economic damage caused by the war, but remain divided over pinning the blame on Russia itself, a G20 member. It comes as President Zelensky spoke with G20 members by video link, urging leaders to help bring an end to the war.
And in Ukraine, newly liberated Kherson is grappling with the aftermath of the Russian troop withdrawal. With critical infrastructure destroyed, the southern city has been left with no power or communication lines. NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel is there and has the latest.
Good morning. The mood here is triumphant, and Ukrainians say recapturing the city shows that they are winning and that victory potentially is close. But now they have to get this city up and running. Ukraine liberated the city of Kherson, routing and driving out Russian troops. But this morning, the victors are standing on bread lines for handouts. In Kherson's main square, word of mouth spread quickly that food is available while it lasts. This is the harsh reality after the elation of victory. Ukrainians can't afford reconstruction, especially now during the war. But now, efforts are underway to get Russia to pay for the damage it caused. A contentious vote at the UN held Russia responsible for damage and deaths in Ukraine and called for an international mechanism to be established for the payment of reparations.
Accounts of atrocities committed by Russians in the occupied territories, murder, rape, torture, forced deportation, looting. they all speak for themselves. It is time to hold Russia accountable.
Some U.S. officials have said seized Russian funds and assets, including yachts from oligarchs allegedly tied to the Kremlin, should go to Ukraine. Russian officials said the UN vote has no legal basis. China voted against it. President Zelensky accused Russia of deliberately destroying Ukraine's infrastructure and said all those responsible must be sanctioned. It's unclear if Russia will ever pay. In Kherson, they're trying to make do. Local authorities brought in a cell tower, but there's still no power. Generators operate a few precious charging stations. Ukraine won back this city, but now who will pay for it? Ukrainians say the answer is obvious. Russia broke it and now must pay. President Zelensky said the fall of Kherson marks the beginning of the end of the war, and some U.S. officials are quietly urging the Ukrainian government to consider diplomatic negotiations with Russia. But here, the mood is not one for negotiations or compromise. They want to keep pushing ahead.
All right, Richard, thank you.
Now to yet another round of layoffs rocking the tech industry. Amazon is reportedly about to let go of thousands of workers as soon as this week.
Yeah, NBC News correspondent Stephanie Goss joins us now with more on this trend that we are seeing across the tech industry. Really, hey, Steph, good morning.
I mean, it's never a good time for this sort of news this time of year, especially, right? The tech industry is taking another hit, a big one from this tough economy. This time it's Amazon cutting workers following Meta and Twitter, which just announced layoffs, and the holidays are right around the corner.
More holiday woes for the tech industry. The New York Times reporting that Amazon will lay off 10,000 workers starting this week. That's 3% of its workforce, the biggest layoff in the company's history. Among the departments feeling the cuts,
Alexa, tell me when it starts snowing. Okay, I'll check the weather.
The devices department, which includes voice assistant Alexa. And surprisingly, the retail division, just as Amazon prepares for the busy holiday shopping season. The company that revolutionized online shopping hit new retail highs during the pandemic. But with changing consumer habits and high inflation rates, Amazon saw a slowdown in its profits this year. The overhaul seems to be part of a larger course-correcting strategy happening across Silicon Valley.
This was ultimately my call. It was, one of the hardest calls that I've had to make.
Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg announcing last week his company would be laying off 11,000 employees, about 13% of its workforce. And Elon Musk cutting half of Twitter's headcount earlier this month after buying the company.
These companies have experienced a sort of decade of explosive growth, but it appears that era of exuberance may be coming to an end.
The economy does not look great right now.
Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, who no longer runs the day-to-day operations, just announced his plans to donate most of his $124 billion fortune to charity. He has been warning about economic headwinds for months, most recently in a new interview with CNN.
If you're an individual and you're thinking about buying a new, large screen TV, maybe slow that down, keep that cash, see what happens.
Although the layoffs at Amazon are happening right before the holidays, Martin Heubel, a former Amazon employee turned consultant, says it shouldn't impact shoppers.
Amazon has done a fantastic job over the past few years to really automate and offshore a lot of the tasks, either in its business or outside to its suppliers and to its other business partners.
We've reached out to Amazon for a comment, but have not heard back. Some experts say these layoffs seem to really only be impacting the tech industry. The last jobs report for October is staying relatively strong for the rest of the economy. And it's obviously affecting the tech industry in a pretty substantial way, guys.
Absolutely. Each company, it seems like it's just the number's so high of people.
And they're not small cuts, right?
Yeah, exactly. You think about those families, like you said, this time of year. Thanks, Steph.
Stephanie, thank you so much.
All right, now let's get a check on your morning news now weather.
Meteorologist Michelle Grossman joins us now. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning, guys. You need the layers as you head out this morning because we're feeling more like December in so many spots. It's going to be chilly all day long, and really looking towards next week, it looks like that chill is going to stay in place. So for today, we're looking at cold enough air to set some snow showers. We're seeing some snow right now in the Midwest and to the Great Lakes, and that will continue today. And then tonight, we'll see precipitation pick up in portions of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. So we'll see some chilly rain along the Mid-Atlantic, but could see some mixed precipitation in interior parts of the Northeast, even some snow. And then New England, you're you're going to see snow tonight into tomorrow. We could see some heavy rain along the mid-Atlantic. Also some strong wind in Southern California, winds gusting up to 60 miles per hour at times in some spots. Tomorrow, the wind will continue in Southern California. We're quiet in the middle of the country, the central and southern plains, but record chill tomorrow. Temperatures in the 30s, even down to the 40s and 50s in Texas. And that snow lingering through the northern part of the nation, the northern plains, into the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, into parts of New England. We could see up to 6 inches of snow in some spots. But it's really all about the cold. It's coast-to-coast cold. We have a big area of high pressure that's helping to funnel down this cold air from Canada. The jet stream is so far to the south, allowing this cold air in. So we're looking at temperatures in the 30s in Boise, 12 degrees below normal, just 59 degrees in Las Vegas. Oklahoma City, the low 40s at 16 degrees below average. And even Montgomery, we're looking at 62, 48 degrees in D.C. and Boston, looking at 43 today. So chilly today, chilly tomorrow. We're going to see kind of a repeat performance tomorrow as we go throughout Wednesday, and then we're going to keep this in place through Thanksgiving. Now, again, we notice that we see some snow falling in the Midwest, Great Lakes, and some heavy rain falling in portions of the Tennessee Valley, even into the mid-Atlantic, parts of the mid-Atlantic. It's going to take a little while to get to the Northeast. That's going to happen later on today. But you see the brighter colors, the yellows, the reds, the oranges. That's where we're seeing the heaviest rain, and even seeing some pink and purple right around West Virginia. That's mixed precipitation, so cold enough to bring some snow down there, too, as well in the higher elevations. And this is what it looks like. We have an area of low pressure combining with a coastal low. That's going to bring the wet weather today. So chilly rain for the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast, and bands of snow swirling around the Great Lakes, not only today, but also on Wednesday. That's going to stick around. And then we're looking at that snow in New England. It could be heavy at times, too. It's a heavy, wet snow for New England tomorrow. The brighter colors, the pinks and purples in Michigan, along the Great Lakes, into portions of the New England area, especially in Maine. We're looking at heavy rain, heavy snowfall tomorrow. And then heavy rain will be in the mid-Atlantic from New Jersey to Delaware, Maryland, into parts of Virginia. That's where you see those yellows and oranges. So let's take a look towards next week, because we're wondering where this cold is going to go. Is it going to be around for all those turkey trots for Thanksgiving? It looks like we are looking at colder than average temperatures next week for most of the country. So this coast-to-coast cold is going to stay in place. It's really only the Pacific Northwest into portions of Northern California where we're going to see above average temperatures. Back to you guys.
I can report from Minnesota. There was a little bit of snow.
Yeah, I saw that.
Family confirms.
I know.
Yep.
Oh, that's awesome.
There you go.
It's here. All right. Thanks,
time.
Michelle.
Is that happy news for them? Do they like that?
They're good. They're fine.
Good.
It's just another day.
I'd like a little snow.
Yeah, just Minnesota.
Exactly. All right, coming up on Morning News now, a close call for Jay Leno.
Yeah, the star comedian is being treated for severe burns this morning after a car exploded in his garage. We'll have the very latest on his condition when we come back.
Welcome back. Late night comedy legend Jay Leno is recovering from severe burns this morning after one of the cars in his garage suddenly burst into flames. NBC News correspondent Nyla Charles is in Los Angeles with the latest.
Welcome to the Tonight Show. Former Tonight Show host Jay Leno recovering after suffering severe burns to his face and hands. Leno was working in his garage when one of his cars erupted into flames without warning on Saturday. Leno telling NBC News, "I got some serious burns from a gasoline fire. I'm okay, just need a week or two to get back on my feet." He is currently being treated at the Grossman Burn Center in Los Angeles for burns to the left side of his face. The star's representative says there is no damage to his eyes or ears. Leno is in stable condition according to the center, writing he is in good humor and touched by all the inquiries. Oh, she's starting to get some heat in her now. The legendary late-night comedian has long held a passion for collecting cars, now sharing his love for hot rods on CNBC's Jay Leno's Garage.
He got sprayed in the face with fuel and it ignited.
George Swift, Leno's friend and mechanic, shocked by the accident.
They're very safe, but, you know, something failed and caused that, you know. But he's got a lot of miles on the steam cars. He knows what he's doing.
Leno was due to appear at the Financial Brand Conference in Las Vegas Sunday, but canceled. All other engagements now also shelved for the rest of the week.
Our thanks to Nyla Charles for that report. Leno's friends say the comedian is in good spirits, but the time frame for his recovery is not yet known. Of course, we wish him the absolute best.
Absolutely. All right, turning now to some international headlines. Turkish police say a woman has confessed to the bombing that killed 6 people and hurt others in Istanbul.
NBC's Janice Mackey-Freyer joins us now from Beijing with that and other world news. Janice, good morning.
Good morning. Officials in Turkey say the woman detained
for carrying out the bombing in Istanbul on Sunday, has confessed. They say she is a Syrian national with ties to Kurdish separatist groups. This according to Turkish authorities. Police scanned images from 1,200 security cameras in order to retrace the suspect's route. At least 6 people were killed and more than 80 were injured in the explosion in Taksim Square, which is right in the heart of the city. To Australia now, where people had to be rescued by helicopters to escape rising floodwaters in what some have called an inland tsunami. People were on rooftops, they were in trees, the water rising so fast over the past 48 hours. The worst hit area is the one west of Sydney, and authorities in Australia are calling for international help. And finally, Princess Anne and Prince Edward are set to become stand-ins for King Charles, meaning that they would take over duties as head of state if he was away or ill or couldn't get things done for himself. It's a very short list of people who are counselors of state. Includes Camilla, the Queen Consort, as well as Prince William. But it needs to be expanded because 2 royals are no longer working royals. Of course, Prince Andrew and Prince Harry. And here's your royal pop quiz. Who is the 5th counselor of state? It is Andrew's daughter, Princess Beatrice.
Right.
And that is a look at your headlines this morning.
I'm available if they run out of people and need extra help. I'm happy to jump in.
Counselor Joe, yes. All right, Janice, thanks so much. Now, this morning, world leaders at the G20 are focused on a global food crisis with parts of East Africa on the brink of famine. Our chief international correspondent, Keir Simmons, traveled to Kenya, where he found inspiring efforts to help some of the millions suffering from a 4-year drought. Hey, Keir, good morning.
Hey, Savannah, good morning to you. And in the past few hours, the Secretary General of the UN, speaking at the G20, has described what is unfolding in places like East Africa as a raging food crisis. But, you know, Savannah, take a look at this picture. This is an image of schoolgirls with access to clean drinking water. It is a picture of what can be done. These girls are learning to hope despite horrifying hardship. Finally, they have fresh water at St. Perpetua Girls' School, part of UNICEF's work to ease a fast-developing drought in East Africa, while their headmistress is an inspiration. You can show these girls that a woman can
make it.
Can make it.
Can make it in life. Even in these harsh times, with the little they have, with no food, they can still make it.
The school has some food, but she has to ration it. Only the very youngest and these students facing exams get lunch.
Yeah, this food is porridge. See, porridge. We drink porridge.
You'd think that might knock their spirits. Not these girls. Are you hopeful that you will do well in your exams?
Yeah, of course. Yes.
An hour's drive from the school, crossing riverbeds dry from the 4-year drought. More evidence of a climate change disaster impacting, by one estimate, 22 million people in East Africa right now. We find a community in unimaginable conditions. We just arrived in this community and look, everywhere there are these deep, deep holes. The desert is punctured with holes at least 30 feet deep. And then we see this. Mothers and even their children clambering down, disappearing underground, risking their lives to pass up buckets of brown water. It caved in over here.
That cave over there.
It caved in over here already.
It
They say one mother was killed when a hole fell in. Aren't you frightened to go down there?
Because of the problems they face, they have no choice.
We're thirsty, Nachomin says. When you see families having to do this just to get water, it's so frustrating when you know how possible it is to provide clean water. As we leave, the women dance, dramatizing their plight. While back at the school, supported by UNICEF,
it's a big victory, this place, but the challenge is much bigger than this one place.
The girls told us they love learning and the hope of a future that's a little less uncertain. Their dreams undimmed. And there's no way to sugarcoat it, Savannah. This is a massive unfolding crisis there. But listen to this. America is the biggest contributor to UNICEF globally. When Americans see images like that, their generosity is unrivaled. Savannah.
And I'm sure that will be the case after people see this story this morning. Kara, thank you so much.
Coming up on Morning News Now, outrage in the classroom.
A teacher in Texas is out of a job after racist comments in front of his students were caught on camera. We have the latest reaction and the fallout for the school when we come back.
Back now with controversy at a Texas middle school after a teacher was caught on camera making shocking and racist remarks in a classroom. A white teacher told his students he believes his race is, quote, superior.
Yeah, the school district announced on Facebook that the teacher no longer works there. NBC News correspondent Gotti Schwartz has the details.
Deep down in my heart, I'm ethnocentric, which means I think my race is the superior one.
A Texas teacher out of a job after this video showing him spewing racist remarks at his middle school students went viral.
I think everybody thinks that, they're just not honest about it.
In the video circulating across social media, you can hear the students baffled, questioning their teacher, whose name has not been made public by the school district.
You are racist? You're saying you're like, you're
I
racist?
think everybody's a racist at that level.
No, you said you are racist.
I did. Yeah, I'm trying to be honest.
Because that content, what he was saying, was extremely racist.
Parents now outraged.
I was very shocked and appalled and saddened that he felt comfortable.
I was disgusted, traumatized. I felt for those children in that classroom.
Music producer Southside, part of the songwriting team 808 Mafia, says his son was in the classroom and shared this series of videos with him, later posting them on his Instagram while venting his frustration, writing, "This hurts my heart to see this. I'm so angry, I'm lost for words, but I will stand up for my child and other Black and Spanish kings and queens in this video." We still don't know what led to this conversation in class, but the school district writing in a statement that the teacher is no longer employed at the school, adding this type of interaction will not be tolerated and does not align with our core beliefs.
No, I'm not saying it again. I've said it enough.
So you're racist.
I think it's like so you can stop speaking. Yes, you can.
Put your phone up.
I respected you for a while, but like I'm putting your phone up. I don't even got no more respect for you.
Put it up.
Yeah, for real. I don't think I got respect for him no more, bro.
Bowles Middle School, where this took place, saying in a letter to parents they encourage their students. "We always do our best to ensure the safety of all students, to be self-advocates, and let an adult know when something is wrong, as they did in this situation."
Gotti, thanks so much for that reporting. The school district spokesperson told NBC they were not sure if the teacher had been fired or resigned, but in their statement they said they were already looking for his replacement. Coming up, the Department of Transportation is taking on the airlines.
Yeah, I'll bring you my conversation with Secretary Buttigieg on how the DOT is working to protect travelers this holiday season. That's when we come back. Now with financial headlines, DoorDash is launching a new safety system for their delivery employees.
NBC's Savannah Hanau joins us with that and other business news. Savannah, good morning.
Joe, Savannah, good morning. Well, DoorDash is rolling out new safety features to help ensure delivery people are safe before, during, and after every order. If DoorDash detects a delivery is taking longer than expected, it will automatically check to see if the delivery person is okay. The new check-in feature is launching initially in New York and Washington, D.C. DoorDash will also start sending alerts to customers, asking them to turn their porch or house lights on as the delivery person is approaching to make them feel safer working at night. Google is bringing shopping features to YouTube Shorts as it tries to generate revenue that's been squeezed by a drop in ad spending. The Financial Times reports YouTube is also testing new commissions for influencers who sell products through links in their videos. Earlier this year, YouTube unveiled a new way for creators to make money on short-form videos, launching ads on Shorts and giving creators a 45% cut of the revenue. And Bird may be getting its wings clipped. The scooter startup stating in an SEC filing it may have to scale back or discontinue some or all of its operations in order to cut costs or file for bankruptcy. This comes just days after the company acknowledged it overstated revenue for 2 years due to an accounting error. Bird's troubles have been mounting for months. It's shut its retail business, laid off a quarter of its staff, exited several markets in the U.S. and Europe and received a warning from the New York Stock Exchange for its stock trading too low, guys.
Interesting. I've always wondered how those businesses, they have a clear obstacle, which is that people aren't necessarily nice to those scooters and treat them like their own.
Exactly. All over the place.
Seems like a challenge.
Oh my God, I know. Just completely thrown.
Yeah, I saw one in a tree once. And
Yes.
oh my God.
That happens.
All right, Silvana, thanks.
You got
All right, if you're planning a getaway this holiday season, you don't need a scooter. Expect to dig into your pocket, though, deep into your pocket. Like many other things this year, airfares are up, and they're expected to be 40% higher than they were this time last year. 40. NBC News correspondent Sam Brock joins us now from Miami. So, Sam, are there ways to save?
Repeated for emphasis, yes. 40%, Joe and Savannah, good morning. And look, every single day that you don't book, prices are going up. In November for Thanksgiving, it's $15, $20, $25 a day for flights that are already between $500 and $1,000. So the simplest advice right now, if you're traveling for the holidays, any holiday, book right now.
This year, the warm and fuzzy feeling of flying to see loved ones is also being served with a side of sticker shock, with airfares soaring ahead of the holidays.
What should people's expectations be right now if they're trying to book flights to see their families?
We're going to see airfares well over $400, probably many over $1,000, especially those coastal flights from East to West Coast and back.
The deal-finding app Hopper that sells tickets shows September prices are up almost 40% from this time a year ago, even as demand remains rock solid. Even more jarring, another research firm found the average domestic ticket in the second quarter shot up to $397. That's the first time in almost a decade that figure has flown above $390. The Harts are just trying to make their regular trip from Orange County, California to Park City, Utah for Christmas.
It's about an hour and 20 minutes, generally $180 to $220 flight. This year over the holidays, we're looking at flights, and we have kids, of course, and it's about $700 round trip per person.
The anger and shock all over social media. One tweet reading, "When did flights become so expensive again?" Mass disruptions over the summer, igniting a passenger firestorm. And while delays and cancellations have improved significantly, the Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, telling Lester he's forcing 6 airlines to pay passengers $600 million in refunds.
Airlines were either taking too long or, in some cases, refusing to give to passengers after their flights experienced extreme delays or cancellations.
Now, a new challenge for travelers, finding affordable tickets.
It didn't take much, one look, and I was like, I think we're going to drive this time.
But if driving is not an option, the best advice from experts?
If you haven't booked your Thanksgiving or Christmas travel yet, book now. Prices will not get better.
Now, Joe and Savannah, there are ways to avoid paying the absolute highest prices, and it has to do with what day your departure is. For example, for Thanksgiving, you want to book on Monday. That is 30% cheaper than the Saturday before Thanksgiving, 15% cheaper than the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Those are the two most popular travel days. Also, on the return, you may want to consider coming back on Thanksgiving or for Christmas, on Christmas Eve or Christmas. That will be cheaper, but it kind of defeats the purpose of spending time with your family, unless you're one of those awkward in-law situations and you're just like, I'm so sorry, but I checked the schedules and it's cheaper that day. I got to go back. So it really depends where you're coming from.
You might kill 2 birds with 1 stone there. Oh, it's cheaper
Save and
All right, Sam, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sam. All right, let's stay on this. As you just heard in Sam's piece, yesterday it was announced that several airlines have to issue more than $600 million in refunds for canceled or delayed flights since the start of the pandemic. Well, I also spoke with Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg about what his department is doing to protect travelers and what we can expect when it comes to flying this holiday season. Secretary Buttigieg, thank you so much for making the time and having this conversation, especially as we're headed into this busy travel holiday season. First, I'd love to hear about these fines with airlines, the amount of money here, and what exactly it is that you're hoping this accomplishes.
So what we're doing is making sure that passengers get what they are required to get under the rules set forth by our department. That includes prompt refunds in a situation where your flight is subject to a cancellation or an unusually long delay. So today we're announcing enforcement actions that are contributing to over $600 million in refunds going to passengers. And as part of that, we're ordering over $7 million in fines for airlines that took too long or, in some cases, tried to refuse outright to give passengers the refunds that they were owed.
I think a lot of times people feel like when something does go wrong with their flight, they're still not really sure what to do about it. They see a customer service line that wraps around an entire airport. They're on hold if they try to make a call for sometimes 6 hours. Are you hoping that this helps standardize what a customer can expect and anticipate from an airline? And do you think it's realistic that we will get to a place where a customer knows exactly how to get a refund and when they are entitled to one?
We're doing several things in order to make that a reality. One of them is announcements like today's penalties. A second thing, though, that's important is that we're using our tools to promote transparency in the airline sector. You can go to our website right now and get an airline-by-airline comparison of what to expect, not just in terms of the legal minimum, but what different airlines have promised that they will do if you have a delay or a cancellation that they're responsible for. This includes things like hotel or meal vouchers, whether they'll rebook you for free on their own airline or a different airline. And I really encourage passengers, before you book, to go to our website and learn more about what to expect.
I think a lot of Americans probably remember the nightmare that happened this summer with travel. And now nearly 40% of Americans are expected to travel by most surveys this coming holiday season. Is there anything specific that's sort of keeping you up at night as we think about that many Americans being either on our roads or in the air?
Well, we've seen a lot of improvements, especially with airline delays and cancellations since early this summer, when we saw some incredibly frustrating situations. So many passengers subject to delays and cancellations. Happened to me multiple times this summer as an airline passenger. We have seen the rates of cancellation go down considerably since I called on airlines, and in many ways, many of them have stepped up to have more realistic schedules in the first place and to get their staffing levels ready. We're also working on things with air traffic control on our side to make sure the system works in a more fluid way.
Secretary Buttigieg, before I let you go, I'm just wondering, especially given when you ran a presidential campaign at 37 years old, we spoke a lot about you seeing your age as such a benefit and something that potentially this country needed and was ready for. As we see a Gen Zer elected to Congress for the first time, several gubernatorial elections ended with millennials coming into office. What do you think about that, sort of a generational shift that we're beginning to see?
Well, look, it's really exciting, although I have to say a little bit jarring, too, to see a lot of people getting elected to very important offices who are younger than I am. I'm often the youngest person in the room for a lot of important policy conversations and decision meetings here in Washington. Looking forward to seeing more people from my generation and a generation yet to come being part of this conversation.
What does it feel like is at stake right now as we're still waiting to hear on the House of Representatives?
Well, look, so many things are at stake. You know, the economy, the future of the country, climate, on issue after issue, the decisions that are going to be made in the years ahead, and in some cases even the months ahead, are really going to affect us for the rest of our lives. I think sometimes politics looks or feels remote for a lot of people. It's something that's playing out, you know, in big white buildings in Washington, D.C. Take it from me, somebody whose marriage exists because of a one-vote margin on the U.S. Supreme Court. Every decision that gets made in public life affects somebody in a very personal, intimate way. That's why all of us, especially in a democratic system, should be paying close attention to those decisions and how we think they ought to be made.
Our thanks to Secretary Pete Buttigieg for his time as we head into holiday travel crazy.
He'll be busy for the next few
weeks. And as we still wait on the hearing about what happens with the House of Representatives. A great conversation.
All right. Coming up on Morning News now, an emotional moment in Hollywood.
Yeah, Christina Applegate had her Walk of Fame ceremony yesterday after being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis last year. We'll bring you the highlights when we come back. Welcome back. It's a debate among many households this time of year. Just how early is too early to decorate for Christmas? Well, according to a new study, 24% of Americans say they now deck the halls earlier for the holidays than they did 5 years ago. How early? Well, as many as 55% of respondents admitted to trimming the tree before they trim the turkey on Thanksgiving. I totally agree with that.
We know which side you fall on.
I know. See, if I had a fake tree, it would be up already. But Alex is very anti that, which I get. So we're getting our real tree Monday.
All right, which will be before Thanksgiving.
That's right. That's
there
absolutely right.
All right. We're going to end this hour with an emotional moment on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Beloved actress Christina Applegate became the latest celebrity to get a star on the famous boulevard. It's a goal she set when she was a little girl. The ceremony was supposed to take place in 2020, but was delayed because of the pandemic. Since then, she's been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis.
Christina Applegate!
Much like her career, Christina Applegate's Walk of Fame ceremony combined the heartfelt and the humorous.
So this day means more to me than you could possibly imagine. I can't stand for too long, so I'm going to thank the people that I really need to thank. First of all, to my family. These people take care of me.
It was her first public appearance since she was diagnosed last year with multiple sclerosis. Supported by her Married with Children co-star Katie Segal and using a cane, the Emmy-winning star spoke directly to her 11-year-old daughter, Sadie, before addressing her health issues with that Applegate touch.
The most important person in this world is my daughter. You are so much more. You are so much more than even you know. And blessed every day that I get to wake up and take you to your school. Thank you for standing beside me through all of this. Oh, by the way, I have a disease. Anyway, did you not notice? What? I'm not even wearing shoes.
Still, it was a poignant ceremony with Applegate's TV mom sharing the crowd's sentiment.
I love you so much, my sweetheart. You're not alone.
50-year-old Applegate is both star and executive producer on Netflix's dark comedy Dead to Me. During filming of the show's third and final season, Applegate says her scenes became shorter with fewer walking shots. But she was determined to finish production, telling Variety, if that meant me having to take a break in the middle of the day so I could go sleep, or me just leaving because I couldn't do anymore, then that's what we had to do.
I'm so happy you're okay.
Oh, God, maybe the hugging's gonna kill me.
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I love you.
Her Dead to Me co-star Linda Cardellini has been by her side through it all.
If you are lucky enough to have her in your life, she will do anything in her power for you.
Selma Blair, who also has MS, was there to support her friend, along with David Faustino, who played her brother on Married with Children.
Anyone who can play that dumb, that good, must be a smart and brilliant actor.
Now, with Dead to Me about to conclude its run, Applegate's long career as an actress may be winding down, but even sitting down, she's still dancing as her star takes its place on Hollywood's famed walk, a childhood wish come true. Applegate told Variety she's pretty convinced her part on Dead to Me could be her last major acting role, but she hasn't ruled out other projects, including possibly an animated version of Married with Children, which is now in development. She wants to continue producing. She says she has lots of ideas. She just needs to get them executed.
Very, very cool. Great story.
Yeah, great moment. That does it for this hour of Morning News Now.
But the news continues right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.